Now, as you probably know, many of us believe that we are due to get one more Mac iPad event out of Apple this year. That may be in question depending upon which analyst you believe, but Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg said in a recent newsletter basically don't count your apples before they're ripe, meaning that Gurman thinks the new products might not have enough oomph to kind of justify another keynote. He says that Apple could just roll out the updates with a few press releases instead. Yeah, that wouldn't be a lot of fun. I really enjoy, as you probably know, and I think you do as well. We enjoy Apple's events. We like hearing about all the new stuff. They're doing these great videos now where they're really, really well produced, in my opinion, and generally pretty efficient. I don't find them as much as anymore as much as I did the live keynotes that they have a lot of extra fluff. We don't get a lot of those developer kind of demo things that always kind of slowed the whole thing down and just made it drag. So, I like these new events. I would love to see them do one for the new Mac and iPad products, but that may not happen. And the thinking behind that, according to Gurman, is that basically Apple did a similar thing a few years ago where they announced the products via PR, via press releases and their website. And what they were able to do is kind of drag that out over almost a whole week. So they would kind of release a new product or throw out new information every day. And I think the idea there was that got them kind of a good press cycle when they were releasing a number of things. And we are still expecting a number of new products to come out this year. An updated M2 Mac Mini, and then maybe even a Mac Mini with an M2 Pro processor. So kind of a Pro higher end version of the Mac Mini, which would be really, really killer. An M2 Pro and M2 Max 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros, so the updates to the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro models. Also, M2 iPad Pros in both the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch form factors, and then an updated Apple TV with a new A14. And so I can see where Gurman would be coming from on this, because basically most of these models are going to be the existing designs, a lot of the same feature set, just with the updated processors, and maybe that's not enough to kind of generate excitement for a keynote, but I think Apple could still pull it off, right? Now, you may be wondering about the Mac Pro M series update. We're not expecting to see that until 2023 at this point, and who knows, maybe we won't even see it for longer. What I find interesting about that is not too many people are mentioning that if that does happen, and we don't see an M series Mac Pro this year, that means that Apple will have missed their full lineup Apple Silicon conversion deadline that they announced when they announced the processors in 2020. And actually, technically, if you go back to their press release, it happened in June 2020, and they said the complete transition will happen in about 2 years. So I guess they gave themselves a little bit of leeway with that about. But that was from June of 2020, so we're already past really 2 years by several months. And if they don't make it before the end of this year, which many people were expecting them, when they said that meant by the end of 2022, yeah, well, it'll be into 2023. I don't think it's a big deal, but just something interesting of note, right? Apple often kind of makes predictions for when things are going to get done, and they don't always end up happening that way, and often for very good reason. I would imagine if Apple's not ready to put out a Mac Pro, that's because they have big plans that just aren't coming to fruition in the timeline that they were hoping for. And I personally always feel it would be better to delay a product if it's not perfect. And Apple has a history of not always doing that, so take their time. I think that's good. They did throw out the Mac Studio, right? So I think that kind of fills that Pro gap for a little while. But ultimately, I know there's a lot of you out there, a lot of Pro Mac users who are really looking forward to seeing what Apple Silicon looks like in a Mac Pro, right? We already have the Ultra processor, and we're expecting the Extreme processor, basically a doubling of the Ultra. And that thing is going to be a monster. Yeah, there's just no way of getting around that. That thing is going to be screaming and amazing. And I think we're all looking forward to seeing that. But seems like it'll be maybe sometime next year. A few other things that Apple does have in the works that are more likely expected for 2023. Apple Music Classical. Remember when they bought that classical streaming service company and they were going to kind of roll that into Apple Music, maybe as a separate app? As a matter of fact, Apple, I think, said they'd have a dedicated classical music app coming in 2022. Yeah, the deadline's running short on that one, and it's not clear if they're actually going to make that deadline or not. But we have seen kind of some hints and references this week for Apple Music Classical coming. Apple had announced Apple Pay Later at Worldwide Developer Conference, and that was supposed to come out before the end of the year. Mark Gurman thinks that could be delayed until 2023 due to what he calls, quote, fairly significant technical and engineering challenges. So that may be a little bit delayed. We also had heard rumors of a potential new HomePod. It's not really clear if it would be an updated mini or a full-sized HomePod like the original or something in between. I'm guessing something in between. And it was supposed to have the new Apple Watch S8 processor in there. That's probably coming sometime in 2023. And at this point, too, most predictions for Apple's AR VR headset launch are for 2023 as well. We don't know how far into 2023 at this point, but hopefully in the first half. You know, we've been talking about that product for a long time, and I'd love to see what Apple has to give us in that department. One other little bit of news this week from the AR VR headset realm, there was a report from the Elec that Apple has asked Samsung to produce an even higher resolution display for the headset, 3,500 pixels per inch, and that would be up from what we had heard the original ask was of about 2,800 pixels per inch. So higher resolution displays going to be really, really nice in that AR VR headset. And then last kind of product updates we're expecting sometime in 2023, probably in the first half, would be an updated 14-inch iPad Pro, so a new size for the iPad Pro, and an updated 15-inch MacBook Air, so that larger MacBook Air that we've been kind of talking about as well. All of those things are probably things to come sometime in 2023.